Hey guys, so in this video we're going to talk about organ systems, and we're just going to introduce each organ system individually. We won't go into too much detail about how the organ systems work together. That will be in a different video. However, we're just going to talk about each organ system individually, and I'm going to use this really cool resource that I saw. I'll give credit to whoever made this. The website that I got this off of is called serpmedia.org. That's SERP media.org. Really cool website. You should check it out. But this is a resource that I found there that I use with my kids in biology class. And so what you can do is it shows all the different systems. We're going to talk about each one individually, but you can actually toggle them on and off. So I can turn a system off or turn a system on, even turn on multiple systems. I can turn them on halfway so you can kind of see an opaque effect, or turn it on all the way so you can see it full on. And you can turn on as many systems as you want. So it's actually really cool. But we'll get more into that later. So let's start off with the first system, which is the integumentary system. So before I start, remember, an organ system, if you don't already know, an organ system is a group of organs that work together to perform a specific job. I mean, you know what organs are: your heart and your lungs and your brain and stuff like that, but different organs have to coordinate together to perform larger functions that no single organ can do by itself. And we call these groups of organs that perform these functions organ systems or body systems. And this is all of those body systems lined out. We're going to talk about each one. The first one is the integumentary system. So the integumentary system is your hair, skin, nails, and your sweat glands. So basically just the outer covering of your body. And it's pretty common sense as to how important that is, of course. It just forms the barrier between outside your body and inside your body. And it keeps the conditions inside your body from just adapting to or responding to whatever the outside conditions are. If it's cold outside, you don't want to be cold inside, right? So the skin and the integumentary system, they all work together to help you just keep the internal conditions separate from the external conditions, what might be happening outside your body. Okay, so if we turn that off, we can turn on the muscle. So the muscular system, it's pretty obvious what the function is for that, okay? It's to move the body, and to also, though, something you may not think about whenever you think of the muscular system, another major function is to generate heat. So whenever you get cold, you shiver, and what that's doing is when your muscles shiver and they vibrate quickly, they're generating heat, which then gets trapped by your integumentary system, the skin, and traps in that heat. And that helps to warm up your internal organs to keep them from getting too cold. The major parts are, there's different kinds of muscles. There's skeletal muscles, and there's smooth muscles and cardiac muscles. Skeletal are the ones that make you move. Smooth are the ones that line your organs and make your organs move. The ones you can't control. You can control skeletal, but you can't control smooth. And cardiac muscle is in your heart only. It's an own unique kind of muscle in your heart. Okay, so the skeletal system. All right, so you know what a skeleton is. You know what your bones are. But something that you may not realize about your bones, actually, is that your bones are where new blood is made. See, in the middle of your bones are actually porous. They're not solid all the way through. If you were to cut a bone in half and look at it, you would actually see that there's a lot of webbing inside of there. And that webbing is because there's a lot of pores inside of the bone, or hollow, empty spaces, okay? And in those hollow, empty spaces, there's stuff called marrow, and there's red and yellow bone marrow, and red bone marrow makes red blood cells, and yellow bone marrow makes white blood cells, and some other stuff as well. But so your bones are actually where new blood is made, and that's something that you may not think about. Skeletal system. Okay, so if we look at the nervous system, the nervous system is your brain and your spinal cord and your nerves. Okay, And you probably realize or know already what the nervous system does. It's to sense the surrounding environment. Whatever's going on outside, if someone throws a rock at your head, you need to see that rock and you need to respond to it. And that is what your brain does. So your brain is mainly for communicating what's happening on the outside of your body to the inside of your body. So the inside of your body can know what is happening on the outside and respond accordingly. Okay. If we look at just the digestive system, we can go ahead and turn on the skeletal so you can see where it's at. So the digestive system is made up of the liver, which is this big guy here, the stomach, large intestine, small intestine, and colon, as well as the esophagus as well. So food goes in through the esophagus into the stomach. It gets turned into a liquid. It gets digested by the stomach acids and massaged into basically a mush, and that mush goes into your small intestines. The food travels through your small intestines, and as it goes through the small intestines, these little finger-like projections that line the inside of the intestine soak up the liquid, basically, it's liquid at this point, into the bloodstream, and they put all those nutrients into the bloodstream. And whatever doesn't get absorbed just keeps going and going until it ends up in the large intestine, where the large intestine sucks out any remaining water that's in the stuff that didn't get absorbed into your bloodstream, the nutrients that did not get absorbed. They take the excess water out of that and put that water into your bloodstream to help keep you hydrated. And what you end up by the end, by the time it gets to the end of the large intestine, is a dry chunk of the left behind stuff that didn't get absorbed, which we call feces. And that sits in your colon, which is like the waiting room until you need to go to the restroom. And then, of course, we all know what happens after that, right? So that's how the digestive system works there. Looking at the respiratory system. The respiratory system is made up of your windpipe called the trachea and your bronchial tubes, which lead into two lungs. And right underneath the two lungs are the diaphragm. The diaphragm is actually a muscle, and the way that you breathe is this muscle pulls down on the lungs, which makes them larger and opens them up, and it makes the volume inside the lungs the pressure, the air pressure inside the lungs less than what is outside of your body. And so air to equalize the pressure inside of your lungs compared to the outside. And then that's how you breathe in. And when you breathe in, you're breathing in all the air, but what your body does is it takes that oxygen. There's many other kinds of gases in the air other than just oxygen, but you're breathing in oxygen. That's the main one that we care about. And we take in the oxygen and we use it to power functions later, which we'll talk about here in just a second. So once the oxygen comes into your lungs, it needs to be put into the bloodstream, which is part of the cardiovascular system. So the cardiovascular system, of course, is made up of different kinds of blood vessels and your heart. So once the air comes into your lungs, it actually gets absorbed from your lungs into the bloodstream. And this blood that has oxygen in it now goes to the heart, where the heart pumps out the oxygen-rich blood to the rest of your body. And when that blood gets to a tissue that doesn't have oxygen or needs more of it, the oxygen actually diffuses into the body tissue from the bloodstream. So it actually leaves the bloodstream. So stuff can go in and out of the bloodstream. Your blood cells don't go in and out of the bloodstream because the only things that can get in and out of the bloodstream are the things that are small enough to do it, okay? And gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide that you breathe in and out, those are small enough to hop into and out of the bloodstream. The bloodstream is kind of like a network of a network of highways that help to transport things from one part of the body to the other. So anytime something needs to get from one part of the body to the other, from the tip of the head down to the tip of the toes, it has to get there by traveling, and consider this system as the roads that things travel on to get from where they are to where they need to go. And when they get there, they can hop out of the bloodstream, just like a person hops out of a car, to go into wherever their destination is that they're trying to get to. So things that are small enough can go into and out of the bloodstream, into the body's tissues, but not the red blood cells. Blood cells are actually too big to go through these tiny little holes. Okay, that's why they don't leak out when they're not supposed to. But other things like CO2 and O2 can get into and out of the bloodstream without the blood cells themselves leaking out of the bloodstream, because you don't want them leaving the bloodstream. You want them to stay in. The next system is the lymphatic system. So the lymphatic system looks kind of like the circulatory system, and it goes all over your body just like the circulatory system. The only difference is that there are these things called nodes, and if I turn off the skeletal system, you can see them better. You have nodes that are everywhere. All these little lumps that are all over the system are what we call lymph nodes, and you might have been to the doctor at some point, and the doctor checked your neck and squeezed your neck right here, and they asked if that hurt, or they're checking for swelling, because what the lymph nodes do is that this is part of your immune response. So they pull fluid. The lymphatic system pulls fluid out of the circulatory system, out of this cardiovascular system here, and they store them in the lymph nodes so that they can analyze the fluid and check it for anything that might be in there that shouldn't be, like bad bacteria or something that could make you sick. Cancer cells, whatever. They'll do an analysis on the fluid that they pull out of the bloodstream, and that happens in these nodes. If you get sick, an easy way to tell is, to check the nodes to see if they're swollen and full of fluid. So that's why the doctor may press here and ask you if that hurts, or they'll just check to see if it's swollen. So we got the urinary system, which is the kidney and the bladder, kidneys and the bladder. So the kidneys filter water out of the bloodstream. Water is another thing that can go into and out of the bloodstream without the blood itself actually leaking out of the bloodstream. And the kidneys take water out of the bloodstream, they filter it out, and then they drip it down into the storage tank we call bladder until you have to go to the restroom. There's a system called the endocrine system, which not many people know of, and it's very important, though, that people know about it. So the endocrine system is a system of what we call glands, and these make hormones, and these hormones help to control functions in your body. You have different glands located in different parts of your body, and they all release hormones. And so we have the male and the female. They're both the same, except the only difference between the male and the female is that the male has testes and the females have ovaries. Sorry, this is the wrong one. That's the reproductive. And the females have ovaries instead of testes. So that's really the only difference. And hormones are how organs communicate with each other. So when these glands release hormones, that's how organs talk to each other and communicate with each other on how they're doing and if anything else is needed. So we have the reproductive system of the female. Sorry, I'm going back and forth. Which includes the ovaries and the ovums and the eggs, and that's how eggs are produced in the ovaries. And in the male, sperm is created in the testes, and once the sperm and the egg unite inside the uterus of the mother, then that is how babies are made. And we don't have time to go into all of the details too much on all of these different systems. This was just an introductory video into each system, what they are, and what they're made up of, and their major functions. And in an upcoming video, we are going to talk about how these different systems work together in order to complete even larger functions, in addition to what each of these systems already does by itself. So make sure to check that out.